disgraced former Congressman George Santos expected soon to walk free after President Trump commuted his sentence. Santos reported to prison this summer to start serving his more than 7-year sentence after pleading guilty to a long list of federal charges, including fraud, ID theft, and money laundering. He's been behind bars now for just over 2 months. But the president posting moments ago, quote, "I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life." The president's decision coming after an appeal for clemency from multiple friends and allies of Santos, as well as a letter from Santos himself, according to a senior White House official. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has been following it all. He joins us from the White House tonight. Gabe, what more are we learning about this?
Hey there, Tom. Well, yes, the senior White House official does tell NBC News that the president has heard from multiple friends and allies of Santos asking for clemency. And then, yes, you mentioned that letter from Santos. The president had read it, Santos describing his conditions in prison. Now, Santos began his 7-year federal prison sentence this summer after pleading guilty in April to charges of aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. Now, the Republican became a household name shortly after he was elected to Congress in 2022. That's when the New York Times reported several lies he told about his backstory during his congressional campaign. Now, tonight, the president writing George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison, adding at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. Tom, as you mentioned, he said, "I just signed a commutation releasing Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life." He also said that he had seen the story of Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, when Blumenthal clashed after Blumenthal had clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi during a congressional hearing. Blumenthal had previously apologized for misleading statements about his military service. The president saying that what Blumenthal did was far worse than what George Santos did, Tom.
Got it. All right. Gabe Gutierrez leading us off from the White House. Gabe, thanks. I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, one of our legal eagles. Danny, President Trump said that in the Truth Social post that Santos was to be released immediately. What can we expect now? How long does it take to get him out of prison?
No, commutation is not the same as a pardon. It's all under the umbrella of what's called clemency, executive clemency. The president can erase someone's conviction with a pardon, or he can commute their sentence, which just cuts it short. He can make it as long or as short as he likes. And what he's effectively done is open the prison cell doors to allow Santos out. So really from this point, it's a matter of getting the commutation paperwork delivered to BOP, Bureau of Prisons, and then getting him processed and getting him out. But he remains convicted of the crime. Commutation is a less controversial option for a president than a pardon, which undoes everything the DOJ did to get the defendant or the offender convicted in the first place.
All right, so explain that for me, right? Just break it down. The commutation is essentially what? Get out of jail free?
Exactly right. It is a shortening of the sentence. When you think of the pardon power, which includes clemency and all the powers of either reducing a sentence or eliminating the conviction to begin with, this is one of the broadest powers given to the president under the Constitution. It's unreviewable. In other words, you can't go to court and say, this was a bad pardon. Once issued, it is over. And so because of that broad scope of power, the president has a lot of options. He could have erased Santos's conviction. He chose not to. Instead, he did what's called a commutation. He simply shortened the sentence, and you can shorten it and keep the person in prison for another couple years. But Santos was sentenced to 87 months. That's a lot of time, a lot more than the 2 months that he served. So effectively, he's ending the sentence, but the conviction remains.
The pardon power is something the president has. Is it usual to see them happen like this during random times in the presidency? You usually see them towards the end of it, right? Right before a president gets out?
Great question, Tom. You're so right. Pardons are often controversial because by definition, they're undoing a lot of work and money spent by DOJ, and technically they're letting a guilty person go free, at least somebody who has been adjudicated guilty. So they're often controversial, whether it's Bill Clinton pardoning his half-brother Roger Clinton. There are plenty of examples on both sides of pardons and commutations being highly controversial. And for that reason, presidents normally wait until they're on the way out the door so as to minimize minimize the blow. And since they're not running for re-election, then there's less harm. But Trump is unusual in that he sort of issues pardons and commutations along the way when he sees fit, when the feeling strikes him.
All right, Danny Savalas for us. Danny, we appreciate it. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.